time before that, when I picked up Sonny, he had a nick, you know, like a scratch, and I asked him what happened, and he said, oh, he got into a little scuffle with another dog, but, you know, I took care of it. And I didn't like it, but, you know, a bunch of dogs are together, I know it happens. So I was like, okay, and I remember telling myself, you know, if it happens again, you know, I'm not going to leave my dog there anymore. Anyway, so the whole time I'm driving there, and I'm thinking he probably got into a fight with another dog. And then my cell rings, and it's Todd. And he says, you know, Jesus, I'm sorry, but there was an accident, you know, and your dog died and my dog died, you know, and Sonny's gone. And I was like, what? And I mean, that's not everything to him, but I was furious. And I was just like, you know what, Todd, I'll talk to you right now when I get there. And I hung up. And so I get there, and I arrive at his place, and he's waiting for me outside in the driveway, and there's a blanket on the driveway, a yellow blanket, and a bunch of other dogs are outside. And then so I walk up to him, and then he's just like, I'm sorry. I'm like, tell me what happened. And then he says, I'm sorry, but you know, Sonny and my dog, they were in a room together, and I guess one of them bit through the drywall, and then and they must have bit the wire. One of them bit a wire that cut off the AC, so they didn't have AC all night, and then they died, you know, so they're both dead. And I was just, you know, I'm in shock, and I'm upset, and so I'm like, okay, let me see this room, because it just smelled like a lie to me. And he's all like, oh no, there's nothing to see. I'm like, why not? And I was all like, what do you mean? I was like, let me go see. He's like, no, it's because I already repaired the drywall. I was all like, well, let me go see the repairs then. And he just says, oh no, you know, you really can't tell, I already fixed it. And I'm like, dude, I'm not leaving unless you show me this room. And he's like, okay. So we walk into the house, and then as soon as I go in, you know, his whole family's on the couch, you know, his son-in-law, his daughter, the kids, and I see MaLeisa. She gets up on the couch, and then she goes to another area of the house. She doesn't say anything, you know, as soon as I walk in. And then he starts walking me toward the back, to some back room. And then he opens the door, like he cracks the door, and then he closes it. And he says, oh, you know what, I can't let you in there. There's a great thing in there, and she's in heat. And I just look at her like, so get her out of there. I want to see this room. And so he takes her out. And this is why I call them liars, because that dog, I found out later, was, I think she was, what's it called? Like there was no way she could be in heat. Or I don't even know if it was a male or female. But regardless, that was a lie right there. Anyway, so we walk into this room, and all I see is a refrigerator, a boiler, and then he tells me, I'm like, okay, I don't see any damage. I look around the room, and he says, like, oh, it's right there, and he points to a corner where, like, the boiler and the fridge were. And I was like, I still don't see anything. So then he just, like, looks at me, and he starts moving the fridge, and he moves the fridge back. And then, so I look behind the fridge, and I look at the wall, and I just see, like, a fresh patch on the floor. You know, when you move something, there's a bunch of dirt, you know, like it's never been touched, it was untouched. And the wall looks fine, I don't see any damage. And then he's like, and then he points to back to where the boiler is. Oh, it's back there. And I'm like, dude, I had just remodeled our living room and done some drywall and some painting, and I'm like, you didn't do this today. You didn't repair. He's like, oh, I worked in construction, you know, and yeah, I did it. I fixed it. It's all dry now. I was all like, like, Todd, just tell me the truth. What happened? Just tell me the truth. So like, that is the truth, that's what happened, and he starts crying. And then, and I'm just furious. And then I know he's lying, and I know he's not gonna tell me anything, so then I walk back outside, and then again I ask him, you know, what happened? You know, just tell me the truth, Todd. You know, how did my dog die? What did you do to him? And he says, I told you the truth, Jesus. I was like, all right. And then he picks up the blanket, you know, where I could see Sonny's head popping out of it, and he puts it in the back of my truck, on my SUV, and then he gives me his collar. And I remember just being pissed, and like, why'd you take his collar off? You know, I didn't get that. And he's just quiet the whole time, and he hasn't like said, you know, oh, you know, I'm gonna take care of this for you. I'll take care of the arrangements, or I'll get you another dog. You know, just make some type of, you know, gesture. You know, not like it would have fixed anything, but you know. Nothing, he just stays quiet. And then I look at him and I ask him, I was like, you know this ain't over, right? And then he looks at me and then he's all like, yeah, and he looks down. And then I was like, you gotta make this right. And he's all, yeah. And then, anyways, I get in my car. When I get home, I open up the blanket and it was like a scene from a horror flick. I mean, Sonny's fur, we don't have those pictures? Sonny's fur was like all, like his legs. It was, you could see the bone in some of his legs, and it just looked horrific. And then, and I didn't believe that his story, you know, or it looked like he got electrocuted. And so immediately I took pictures. Sorry I didn't bring them. And then I took him to the emergency vet clinic, because to me it just looked like abuse or something. So I take him to the clinic, and you know, the techs come out, and they look at him, and I tell them the story that he just told me, and they're like, they're horrified. I mean, these are professionals that see, you know, deceased dogs all the time, and they're like, no, those stories don't match. I mean, it turns out that, yeah, it was just because of the handling of the dogs, but I mean, it just shows how callous they were in handling the remains of the dogs. Anyway, so the techs, you know, they take in the body and, you know, the remains, and then I find out, and they said they'll call me back, and I leave it there, and they didn't even charge me for anything, because, you know, they just thought it was a clear-cut case of abuse, and right away they said, you know, hey, if you need us to testify, if you need us to, you know, talk to detectives or investigators or anything, we'll do it. You know, this was just them on their own telling me all this. This is just based on the condition of the remains. So this is Friday night, and then Saturday, my wife is Googling stuff about the Green Acres place, and then the story comes out on the news about 17 dead dogs being found, and so I'm in shock. I was all, because he had just told me it was just his dog and my dog that had died, you know. So right away I call Maricopa County and you know, tell them to add my dog to the count. Anyways. Sorry. Anyways, I haven't talked to them since, but I'm just, you know, I just truly believe they're just greedy liars. They're callous people. They're only sorry that they got caught. And you know, they took an important member of our family away. You know, they didn't give us a chance to say goodbye. You know, oh, because here's another thing. You know, like I said, I mentioned that my dog was athletic and stuff, because, you know, that's my son. Anyways, too, because I would take him running. We would run like 3 to 6 miles. I know I don't look like a runner right now, but I was in shape back then. And then, but anyways, a year prior to this, me and Sonny had gone on a hike in July. Yes, it was dumb. But, and we went in, we started out late, because it was super cloudy, and I thought, we'll be all right. It was about 9 in the morning. Anyways, the clouds burned off, and we didn't have enough water, and I got dehydrated, and so did the dog, and he actually passed out. Or he just collapsed. So I carried him down from the mountain. This is a Thunderbird Mountain Trail. I don't know if you're familiar with that trail. So I'm carrying him down, and then I get to the road. He's a 90-pound dog, you know, and I'm dehydrated myself, but, you know, I'm doing the best I can to get him help, get him to the car. So just somebody passing by sees me, gives us a ride, you know. And the first thing I do is I call the vet, you know, my vet. I'm like, hey, this happened, my dog's dehydrated, you know, can you help him? And then they're like, no, take him to the ER, you know, the vet, emergency vet clinic. And so I take him there, and then, you know, right there the vet clinic tells me, you know, well, you know, it's 50-50 whether or not he can make it, you know, and it's going to cost like $2,500 just to keep him overnight, to pump fluids in him, and there's no guarantee. But I said, yeah, I said, of course, you know, I got to do the best, you know, for him. And so he made it, you know. He made it out of it. He survived the night, and, you know, started jogging again, doing back to our old routine. So it kills me when I find out that, you know, they found this, you know, situation with all these animals at 5 in the morning, you know, and then I see that they send a text like at, I don't remember the details, maybe at 10, you know, Sonny's gone. So he was alive all those hours, you know, fighting to stay alive, you know, and they didn't do jack for him. What, they took out the hose and threw water on him? You know, if they could have at least called me, you know, hey, this happened, you know, it's an accident, it's a horrible accident, you know, what do you want us to do? I would have said, take him to the ER. You know, I would have said, I would have called my father-in-law, called a friend, anybody, pick up my dog, take him to the vet clinic, emergency vet clinic, you know, but they were too worried about covering their own behinds instead of concerned about, you know, these family members. Sorry. Anyway, I know they have a plea agreement, but if it's possible, you know, if they can do more jail time, because I think that's the only thing that'll affect them, you know, then if you could, Your Honor, do that. But otherwise, thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Your Honor, the state would next call Mrs. Shannon Gillette.
Good morning. Could you please spell your name?
Shannon, S-H-A-N-N-O-N, Gillette, G-I-L-L-E-T-T-E.
Thank you.
Your Honor, first of all, I would like to thank you for listening to us all speak today. My husband and I had 2 beautiful golden retrievers named Sherman and Parker. Son at the top there. They were just more than dogs to us. Sherman was the best man in our wedding. He walked down the aisle and he stood with my husband and I while we were getting married. And shortly after we got married, we got a puppy named Parker. And these are just, like I said, more than just dogs. They slept in our bed with us. We had scrapbooks made for them. We'd take them on family vacations, and we had never even boarded our dogs before. When we would go out of town without them, there were times we flew family in from other states to stay with our dogs. And these were very, very important members of our family. Sherman and Parker became big brothers when our two oldest sons were born. Our boys grew up with Sherman and Parker. Our boys leaned on Sherman and Parker while they were learning to walk. They fed them their goldfish, crackers, and we had Sherman and Parker for 8 and 9 years. Over the years, Parker became 100% blind. Sherman would help his little brother find his way around the house. They were great dogs. There came a point in our lives when we needed to board our dogs. We were in between our houses closing, and we had to stay in a temporary rental home that didn't allow dogs. So our search began online, looking for a kennel-free boarding facility, somewhere where they could stay with family and be treated just like they are at home. So we went to the Green Acres website. The front page of the website had pictures of green grass. It said Disneyland for dogs on the website. We loved the idea of Green Acres because it was open range, kennel free. I emailed MaLeisa to check her availability. She sent me an email and wrote back, "Hi Shannon, we do have room and we'd love to keep your Goldens. We'll take great care of them. We ask that you bring their food so they don't have tummy issues. Plus our yard is like Disneyland for dogs." We took a tour of the facility with MaLeisa. There are 5 or so dogs running around. She showed us the yard and inside her home. We stood in her kitchen and we said, "What does a typical day look like here?" And she put her hands out and she said, "This is it. The dogs just hang out with us. They sleep with our children in their bed. They're treated like family." We had a tour of the yard. We're in her home, and we're never, ever, ever told about this secret 9 by 12 room. If we ever knew that we would be paying someone to keep our dogs locked up in a 9 by 12 room with 28 other dogs, I mean, I don't know of anyone that would ever pay someone for that type of service. We were deceived and lied to, and they were so good at their lies, and they were just like con artists, and we believed their lies, and all the families here today believe their lies. MaLeisa promised she would take good care of our dogs. It was advertised and sold to us as a kennel-free boarding facility. I received another email update from MaLeisa asking I asked her how Sherman and Parker are doing. She said, "Doing great. Sherman is honestly having the time of his life. We play fetch 2 or 3 times a day, and he loves it. I'm not sure he fetches, but he loves running with the other dogs. Parker, who's blind," she said, "Parker is totally finding his way around and is always waggy and smiling and looks pretty happy." I so wish this email was true. I wish my dogs had been running and playing like she told us. The sad part is once our dogs were dropped off, that was the last time anyone would really see them. Over the weeks that Sherman and Parker were there, other dog owners who are here in the courtroom dropped their dogs off and never saw 2 big golden retrievers. I don't know of anyone where were our dogs when all these other dog owners were dropping their dogs off? They didn't hear any barking from the secret room. There was just no sign of our dogs. We can imagine the terror that our dogs felt, wondering where we were, why we'd leave them at such a horrible place. The next time we heard from the Hugheses was Saturday afternoon at 11 a.m. We were in California. It was the first day of our vacation for our son's birthday. Todd Hughes left us a voicemail to tell us our dogs ran away. He said some dogs dug through the I'm getting all the lies confused. He left a message saying our dogs ran away. They dug through the fence and ran away. Our blind golden retriever and another dog. He said there was maybe like 5 dogs that ran away. So we immediately called all of our family in Arizonans, and we've posted on social media, our dogs ran away from this boarding facility. Can you guys all please go look for our dogs? We even called the police. There's a recording of that, like asking are any dogs found running through the neighborhood. We even called Todd, so he left us that voicemail, and then we called him back, and we're very forgiving people. We were on the phone with him, and my husband was sympathizing with him, like, wow, we're so sorry this happened to you. This must be really hard. Like, you own a boarding facility and some dogs ran away. Is there anything we can do to help? And he said, no, my wife and my girls are out looking for the dogs right now. Our first concern was Parker, who is blind. There's a canal right by their home. Like we said, did you check the canal? Because he's blind, he could have fallen in there. And he goes, that's the first thing I checked was the canal. And no, I mean, we're going to find them. Keep in mind, this was over 24 hours before they found the bodies. He was still lying to us. Over the next few hours, we'd learned the horrible details of our precious Sherman and Parker, that they were not running and playing, they were dead, their bodies hiding in a shed, dead along with over 20 other family pets. Dozens of families feeling our same sadness. Over the past 2 years, we've had to deal with reliving this day over and over again. We felt like we lost our children. We had to put our jobs and lives on hold while we attended court hearings and other meetings related to their deaths. We still miss Sherman and Parker every day. We fight for justice for them and their friends that died. In a little bit, MaLeisa and Todd, I'm sure, will get up and talk about how this was an accident. Valerie spoke earlier about 28 dogs in a 9x12 room. Like, it shouldn't matter what may or may not have happened to the AC. Why were 28 dogs in a room? They deceived and lied to us and committed fraud, and they pled guilty to that. It's just horrible that anyone could run their business like that. Like, how long were our dogs in this room? This was not a mistake. The 28 dogs did not put themselves into that horrible laundry room. The deaths of our dogs are a product of the decisions that they made, and they should take full responsibility. There are many steps that they could have taken to prevent this tragedy from happening. They lied and deceived the families on multiple occasions. The conditions that they kept our dogs in were inadequate. So, Your Honor, I ask that you please sentence the Hugheses to the maximum sentence permissible by law. Thank you.
Thank you.
Your Honor, the state would call Dr. Bernard Mangone.
Could you please spell your name?
Absolutely. First name is Bernard, B-E-R-N-A-R-D. Last name is Mangone, M-A-N-G-O-N-E.
Thank you, sir. Go ahead.
I actually didn't know I was going to be speaking this morning, so I don't have anything prepared, but this is rather emotional for me as well.
Take your time.
I became a veterinarian because, for all the corny reasons, I love animals. And after being a veterinarian and working as an emergency veterinarian for about 11 years, I realized that someone has to be an advocate for animals. They can't speak for themselves. It's much like children. They can't protect themselves. They can't speak for themselves. And that's why I do this. I've been involved, all of us that worked on this case have been involved in it, and it's been a big part of our lives for the last 2 years. I was involved in this heard about it on the radio on the Saturday morning, and was in with the first meeting with the sheriff, and I was on scene for the warrant being served, and I've seen the property, I've seen the rooms, I did the necropsies on the dogs that were presented dead. The crux of the matter with this case is that ultimately these animals wouldn't have died if it hadn't been for the negligence of putting 28 dogs or 29 or 27, or depending on what day they decide to tell you what number, animals in a single room. I think when we calculated averages out, it works out to like 2.5 square feet per dog in the rooms. Whether the air conditioner died, whether anything else happened, doesn't really matter. If there had been an appropriate number of dogs, 6 or 7 in that room, they wouldn't have died. It wasn't that hot that night. There was no thermal heating into that room because there was no sun. It was at night. So the only way for that room to heat up significantly would be from the mass of the dogs in the room. If there had been an appropriate number of animals in that room, they would not have gotten that hot. And it's an unfortunate feedback system. Those animals suffered, and they suffered physically and psychologically while they were in that room. They became hot, they became agitated, they started panting. You know, we've all been in a car that gets hot. We've all been somewhere where we get hot and start to, I gotta get out of here. And that's how those animals were, and they couldn't leave. And the more they moved around trying to find a cool place, the more they panted, the hotter they got. The hotter the room became, and the less oxygen that was there, the more agitated they got. The more carbon dioxide they exhaled into the room, the more agitated. So these animals became incredibly agitated before dying. And dogs, very often, because of what they do as pack animals, agitation isn't necessarily manifest by jumping at the walls and barking. They may become withdrawn and crawl into a corner. Some of them will become agitated, some won't. But it can be said without any equivocation, these animals suffered while they were there. And they suffered for a significant period of time. And many of those animals continued to suffer for hours after they were removed from that room. The great travesty, as was pointed out before, one of the great travesties here, is that there were several animals that were alive, and some of these animals were alive for hours. Having been an emergency veterinarian in Phoenix and seen literally hundreds of animals with heat stroke or heat exhaustion, a very significant percentage of those animals can be saved. They didn't need to die. Some of them would have, but some would have survived if they had been taken to a veterinarian, if they had been treated appropriately. There's veterinary clinics open at 5 o'clock in the morning. There were lots of places that they could have been taken. There were people that would have helped. They could have just put out a Facebook post and they'd have probably had 50 people taking dogs to vets. There's no excuse for the actions that were taken when these animals were found. I've been, as I said, I've been in the house. I was there. I was one of the first people in when the warrant was served. They probably don't remember. I was taking photographs. These people are truly some of the most unpleasant individuals I've ever encountered in my life. And because of statements made by many of the deputies, I think they figured out there was something like 120 years of deputies that were in that room. They had been on the force, that had been there, and to a person, these were the least pleasant people they'd ever dealt with. MaLeisa in particular, profanity, belittling. As we're leaving, she was discussing how she was the only person in the room that had a college education. Everyone else was too stupid to be there, and they shouldn't have been. No one could dispute what she said because she was the smartest person in the room, and on and on and on. On the day that we served the warrant, the remaining dogs were in the room where the dogs had died. It shows a complete lack of compassion for the animals and a complete inability to rationalize that that's an inappropriate decision to make. These people should not have nor interact with animals at any point in time. The day we served the warrant, the comment was made to them that where they had their rabbits housed was a problem, and those rabbits would have issues if it got hotter. And a couple weeks later, those rabbits were dead because they had left them in exactly the same place, in exactly the same conditions, after being warned that they shouldn't have them there. I can't add much to what the families have said. These people have taken away from families, family members. We think of, oh, they're a dog. But to many people, dogs are an important part of their family. There was recently, last month, there's a paper published on how most people grieve more deeply for a pet than a lost family member, because we treat our pets and think of our pets more like children than we do a spouse. We have to take care of them. We have to provide for them. They provide us unconditional love. And that's a response that's evolved over thousands of years of interaction with dogs. So what they've taken from these people is more than the dog that lives in the backyard. They've taken a family member. From some, they've taken a source of support. A individual who can bring a child out of the shell that they've built due to autism. For friendship, companionship for people who don't have other companionship. These animals are far more important. Animals in general, dogs in particular, are far more important to people than just having a pet. It's not a piece of furniture, it's a friend. I think it was Gandhi that said that a nation can be judged, a nation and its moral progress can be judged by the way we treat our animals. We're at a crossroads nationally with animal rights in understanding that how we treat our animals is a predictor of how we treat people. Animal cruelty, as I'm sure you know, has recently been added to the FBI list of reportable crimes. And the reason why it's been added to the list of reportable crimes is because it is a predictor of future behavior. And importantly, it's a predictor of future behavior toward people. And when we have someone that is so callous and so unable to understand that what they did is not only criminal, but amoral. It's not even immoral, it's amoral, the way that they treat this. When you can have them belittling and badgering people who they have harmed. Burglars don't do that. They stand up and say, I'm really sorry I stole your stuff. They don't pretend it was your fault they broke into your house. Whereas their example is that, hey, they left him here, it's kind of their problem. And we all understand societally that that's not true. But ultimately, as I said, I didn't have anything prepared, so I don't continue to ramble. What has been taken from these people is far greater than, as I've said, pets. I certainly think that these people should not be allowed to have other animals. They've shown very specifically that they do not have the judgment to deal with pets or animals in an appropriate manner. I would have little doubt that placed into the same situation again, they would make largely the same choices that they have made previously. As far as other sentencing, that's not for me to say. I certainly would consider a day per animal to be minimal. But I think exposing them to other animals, either, and I know it's been agreed upon, but either having and owning other animals or working with animals is completely irrational. Their community service should be as far away from animals as possible. They should not be working in a humane situation. That's not going to teach them a lesson. Their ability to provide benefit to a humane society or other humane organization is at best minimal. As was noted before, they should be picking up trash or scrubbing police cars or doing something. They should not be interacting with animals in any way at any time. I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Doctor. Your Honor, the state is going to call Jason Carpel to speak on behalf of some of the victims who could not be here today.
Jason, J-S-O-N, last name Carpel, K-A-R, P as in Peter, E as in Eric, L as in Larry. I'm speaking on behalf of two people. First, I'm going to speak on behalf of Jan Miller, and I'm going to read a letter that she wrote. I'm going to read it verbatim. It is titled, My Dog Roxy. I adopted Roxy from the Arizona Humane Society to give her a better life with a loving and caring owner. She became my pal, going on walks, playing chase the tennis ball in the backyard, and weekend visits to the dog park. A happy-go-lucky girl. Because she was a big and active dog, I wanted her to stay someplace while I was on vacation where she could run and play with other dogs. This was the most important thing to me. I looked up boarding facilities online and I found Green Acres, a facility that said the dogs would be cage-free, have the ability to roam the house, indoors and outdoors, and would be looked after. I visited the house, was invited in, and told Roxy would have the run of the house and play with the children. I was even told Roxy would sleep with the children. I took Roxy to Green Acres for 2 or 3 Wednesdays prior to my trip, so she'd be comfortable staying there. Never did I realize she'd be locked up an entire day in a 9x12 room and never getting to run and play as promised. She was very thirsty each time I picked her up, and I had assumed, wrongfully, it was from running around outside. I had even reminded Todd to leave a bowl of water outside for the dogs, since it was summertime. Looking back, Roxy could have stayed home those Wednesdays, had more freedom, and been more comfortable. I placed blame on myself. I was devastated to first get the voicemail while on vacation in Maine that Roxy had ran away and they were going to look for her. My biggest nightmare had come true. I called and suggested they go down the street where we come in, thinking she might have headed that way. But it wasn't like Roxy to run, especially run away. Now I'm wondering, why the lie? Why lie to me? Then to hear later from my daughter that Roxy died in a crowded 9x12 room with 29 other dogs broke my heart. I was speechless to learn the way our dogs were treated, or rather mistreated. It was all about the money, not if the dogs were okay. Who in their right mind would house all those dogs in one room? Why would you do that to someone? How cruel and insensitive. There are no words for this. When we confronted MaLeisa and Todd Hughes, they became very angry and argumentative. Never once did they offer an apology. Never once did they show remorse. And still to this day, they have not taken responsibility. It would have been much better for them to apologize over and over and show some humility and concern. It could have maybe made me feel better about losing my only friend. From those who were there, I understand this was never demonstrated. To this day, I don't feel the Hughes feel they have taken any responsibility for what happened. It is important for the legal system to show them otherwise. And that's from Jan Miller, couldn't be here today. I also have some notes and statements from a Zach Wicker, who is the husband of Heather Wicker, who spoke earlier. She did show pictures of their two dogs, Remington and Valor, who were both 2 years old. And some of the points that he wanted me to touch on, she had already touched on, but I'd just like to hammer home a few of those points on his behalf. They searched for a dog facility that was supposed to be free range, and that the facility was advertised as a Disneyland for dogs. He said that that was important because, as Ms. Wicker stated earlier, their dogs are their children, and they wanted to put them in the best position possible. Mr. Wicker's ultimately upset through this whole process, specifically at the Hughes, as he sees that they have not taken any responsibility for their actions. He says that the apology letters were not apology letters, that they were not personal apology letters, they're not acceptable apology letters, and that it seems as if a 3-year-old wrote those with no remorse for what has happened. They both felt defrauded and taken advantage of when they brought their dogs to a facility that was supposed to be free range, and that their dogs were never supposed to be locked up. They used to call their dogs family, specifically children. Mr. Wicker said the legal process has been troubling, and this whole process has really haunted him due to the fact of the limited responsibility the Hughes have taken, the minimal plea that was allowed to be accepted, and the Hughes' attitude, comments, and actions throughout the legal process. Mr. Wicker requests an enhanced sentence for the paying cost to him, which he still lives with every day, for the paying cost to his wife, which they live with every day, for their ability to not know the truth as to what happened, for being lied to, deceived, and for still not getting an apology that's fitting. Their biggest thing in this process was they just wanted the Hughes to take responsibility. His exact words, and I have them in quotes, if they would have taken responsibility for what they did, I wouldn't hold a vengeance. But they have never taken responsibility. The real victims here are all the dog owners. All the dog owners, their spouses, their loved ones, their children, those are the real victims here. And it's important to note that those victims, while they have been able to go through this process and gain new friendships, will never get their dogs back. They were never told that the dogs were to be locked up in a room, or they would have never brought the dogs there. He would like to see them in jail for 1 year at the minimum. He'd like to see them in jail for 1 year, or at the minimum, 6 months. I believe this is adequate time, as they've taken something that they can never get back. The pain it has caused him and his family and the rest of the victims here will last a lifetime. Jail will be done and gone before a year is over. We ask that you enhance the sentence to the extent the law allows. And that's it for Mr. Zach Wicker.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hartwell. The stand would now call Marie Tromby to the stand, or call her to speak.
Please spell your name for the record.
Marie, M-A-R-I-E, Tromby, T-R-O-M-B-I.
Go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Marie Tromby, and I am one of the detectives that worked on this case, and the main detective.
Could you keep your voice up so everyone can hear you? You're soft-spoken.
Sorry.
Thank you.
So I'm here today. Today is about the victims that are sitting in the courtroom today. That is why I'm here. I trust the court will have listened to each heartfelt account of what each of the victims has gone through over the past 2 years. I have been to some of the court proceedings, and I have witnessed for myself the sneers and inappropriate remarks made by the Hugheses. I've even been subjected to a few of them. The victims have had to remain quiet all this time. Today is their day. They've had to remain quiet even when their emotions and sadness over the deaths of their dogs was minimized by the county's top prosecutor. I have seen here today that they still have faith in the justice system. On the front of this building, it states, "The first duty to society is justice." I believe in that, and that is what I stand for. I believe the victims deserve justice. I have faith that this court will deliver a deserving sentence today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, we're waiting one speaker who's, I believe he's parking outside right now, and he's on his way up. We have a letter from Ashley Branch that we would like to have presented to the court.
Are we going to read the letter, Mr. Chung?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Coppell, next you go ahead, sir.
This letter is from an Alan and an Ashley Branch. Oh, thanks. A-L-A-N and then Ashley, A-S-H-L-E-Y, Branch, B-R-A-N-C-H. To whom it may concern, having 4 of our beloved dogs tragically killed while under the supposed care of the Hughes has left a large hole in our family and terrible memories we will carry with us forever. The lies the Hughes told us started from the moment we dropped our dogs off in their care. We were told, and in quotes, "It just so happens our dogs will be the only other dogs in their care this week." Later, finding out there were many other dogs somewhere on their property that we never saw. MaLeisa responded to my text inquiring how our dogs were doing, as if she was sitting next to them petting Tiny, when really she was in Florida, something we never agreed to, nor were made aware of. Leading to the ultimate heartbreaking lie that my dogs had escaped, and after searching all afternoon for them, Tonka, Buick, Snickers, and Francis were found dead from heat. None of this made sense. How could Snickers leave being blind and deaf? And Buick, our English bulldog puppy, who hated being outside longer than having to go to the bathroom. Only to find out that everything the Hughes had promised us and told us was all a big lie. Our dogs died a very tragic and slow and a preventable death. Our now 8-year-old still cries about our dogs and asks why someone would kill them. We all hate leaving them, even for a night, with boarders or anyone for that matter. Tiny, our surviving Great Dane, has never been the same. She was and is very depressed, doesn't act like herself, and barely eats. The lack of remorse from the Hughes has only added to our hurt and anger. Our dogs were irreplaceable family members, and we will always cherish our good memories with them. Unfortunately, due to the Hughes boarding facility, they were taken from us far too early, and we're all left with gruesome memories of our dogs piled like garbage in a shed. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. The state would now call David Gillette.
Please come forward, sir, and stand right here at this podium. Sir, begin by stating and spelling your name, please.
David Gillette, D-A-V-I-D, G-I-L-L-E-T-T-E.
All right, what would you like to say, sir?
Well, I guess I'll start off by saying my wife and I just had to have a babysitter watch our 3 boys. A 6-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 1.5-year-old. And my wife reminded me to bring a picture of our dogs, Sherman and Parker. And usually when I see a picture of Sherman and Parker in the house, I reluctantly try to hide it because it's too painful. And before I left, I asked my oldest son, Brody, I go, Brody, where's the closest picture of Sherman and Parker? Do you know where one is? And he goes, yeah, Dad. I was keeping right by our playroom TV. And he went and grabbed the picture next to the TV and handed it to me. I didn't even know it was there. I want to say thank you to all the families that have been dealing with this tragedy for over 2 years now. We didn't ask for this. I don't know what any of us would have done without each other. We've all grown so close to each other. We've become friends. We've shared stories. They've even seen our 4-year-old grow up right in front of their eyes. He was 2 when this happened. I want to thank the court. I want to thank the legal teams that have been involved since the beginning. I can't thank them enough for their sacrifices, the time that they've invested in this case, away from their families and their friends. Never asked for anything in return. I thank the court for pursuing this case, for pursuing justice for our family members that were killed. So I decided not to write a script. I decided to just speak off my mind. Felt like that would be more authentic. My wife and I have been together since 2004. And before we decided to start a family together, in 2006 we bought our first home. And we made a decision that that the first gift to ourselves would be our first son, and that would be a golden retriever. I love golden retrievers. My best friend in high school had one. Her name was Brandy. And ever since I met her, I dreamt of having one. My wife's family always had labs. And so what better way to start our new life together than to start it off with a dog. One of the friendliest breeds out there. And we knew we were going to start a family, and so we wanted to get a breed that made sense for that as well. And so in 2006, we found a place that had golden retrievers, a breeder out west. This is before we knew about adopting dogs. And I remember, like it was yesterday, we drove out to this house, and they had a bunch of beautiful golden retriever puppies running around the yard. And so we were faced with the task of finding our next family member. And I remember like it was yesterday. All the other dogs were kind of running off in the corner. And this puppy just came right up to my feet. And it's kind of funny, he pooped right next to my feet. And I said to myself, that's the dog I want. That's going to be our son. He felt so comfortable next to me that he was willing to go to the bathroom next to my feet. And so I told the breeders that that's the one, and we took him home, and we had recently moved into our home, and what we did was we carried him over the threshold as part of our new family. We were so excited to start this life together and add him to our household. A year later on our anniversary, we didn't realize how challenging a puppy would be, you know. And they'd pee all over the place, and they'd poop all over the place. They were children. At the end of the day, though, you know, it's all worth it. And we worked so hard to take care of them and feed them and bathe them and take them to the vet when they're sick. But at the end of the day, it's all worth it. It was such a joy. They're so compassionate. You know, they know when you're happy, they know when you're sad. That's why Gia had a dog. Because he understood that, and the family understood that they just have a natural gift to comfort you. So a year later, on our anniversary, my wife came up to me, she's like, "Hey David, what do you think of getting another one?" For sure. At first I'm like, I don't think so, babe. This is our anniversary. I just want to kind of hang out and relax and enjoy my time with you. And then I realized that showing that so much joy to our lives that we should give back to him. That he would just love it. And so on our anniversary day, we just kind of got bored and we started calling breeders again. We went out to the west side again. It's a year after we got Sherman. We walked in the backyard of this breeder's house again, and a bunch of golden retrievers rolling around. And I saw the one that looked a little odd, you know, a little out of place. He was a little skinnier than the other ones. He didn't look as much like a golden retriever purebred as the other ones. But he stood out to me and my wife. Let's go get that one. Let's get that one. And so I took him home, and I waited for Sherman. We opened the door, and you know, Sherman's face was just, you can't explain it. It was like a toddler getting, you know, a Christmas present that he asked for. He was so happy. I still have a video of it. of them running around under the tables. And instantly we were brothers. So was my wife and myself, and now we had 2 boys. And I apologize for crying so much. I've just suppressed it for so long. I don't want to think about this. I'm just kind of worn down. It's been so hard on everybody. So in the next 7 years, over the next 7 to 8 years, we had 2 more boys. 2 babies, real ones, human beings. You know, we would take Sherman and Parker everywhere with us. We'd take them to dog parks at the beach, Laguna Beach. We'd take them to Sedona, dog parks up there, Payson. I'm a big Denver Bronco fan and Kobe Bryant fan, and so on Halloween I would always dress them up with their jerseys on. And we would walk them out to the trunk or treat in Queen Creek with our boys. And people would give them dog biscuits as they walked by. And the kids would walk up to them and play with them, and oh my gosh, look at those 2 dogs, they're so cute. I'm not a Bronco fan, but they're awesome, you know. They're our family. You know, the state of Arizona proclaims that animals are property. You know, the cell phone that I brought in with me today was property. You know, the toothbrush that I used this morning to brush my teeth, that's property. The car that I drove here today is property. You know, the state proclaims that each one of our dogs is only worth 1 day. We had them for 7 to 8 years. It just doesn't make sense to me. Well, I'll tell you one thing, the Hughes treated them like property. They didn't treat them like human beings. They didn't treat them like family. They were all stuffed in that room by themselves to die by themselves, wondering where their parents were. Over 2 years ago, my wife and I were in between homes, and we had to find a boarding facility. And in the past, we would always bring Shannon's aunt in town. We would pay for a plane ticket to come in town and watch our dogs. But this time, you know, our lives, our boys were growing up, and we were just so busy, and we said, well, why not? You know, it seems like there's some good stories out there about sharing your dog, letting your dog stay at borders, and my wife and I decided that we didn't want a kennel boarding facility. We wanted it to be free roaming. They're big dogs. You know, they're big dogs. They're energetic dogs. They like to be outside. They like to run around. And so my wife found Green Acres. I was like, yeah, let's go check it out. Go see how it is. So I went to Green Acres. It was the day that we moved out of our previous home. We just left, we got in the U-Haul, we had our last U-Haul, we left the house. We got the dogs in our car, and we drove over to Green Acres, and that's where we met MaLeisa. It was a beautiful property. It was, you know, Disneyland for dogs. You know, we walked in, a couple of acres, grass, trees. And we thought this was going to be great. There were a couple other dogs running around. We went in our kitchen. We sat down and we talked to MaLeisa about what kind of service they were going to provide. We were excited because we knew that when we were gone on vacation, that they would be taken care of, and in between this period of homes, that they would be taken care of. And I asked MaLeisa, I asked her, what does a typical day look like in your home? What does a typical day look like for the dogs that you've watched? The exact words. And she proceeded to explain to us that, we love dogs. This is our livelihood. This is what we enjoy doing. A typical day is going to be, they're going to be roaming around the yard. They're going to be playing with other dogs. That she went so far as to say that they're an extension of her family. That don't be surprised if they end up sleeping in our children's beds or on the foot of their beds. And that's how we treat our dogs. So we weren't surprised by that. And we're like, oh, this is going to be great. They're just like us. They love dogs. They're going to treat our dogs with respect, and they're going to act like that they're their own children. And another concern we had was we didn't want them to be around too many dogs, and so we were like, how many dogs do you guys typically have at any given time? And she's like, oh, we, 4 or 5, 6 maybe, something like that. And we're like, okay, we can deal with that. Not a big deal. It's a big property. A few dogs, not a big deal. That'd be great. And she just really put us at ease. We'd never met her before. Obviously, Shannon had spoken with her a little bit, but I had never met her before. I feel like I'm a pretty good judge of character, but she just kind of put us at ease. We felt comfortable and confident at that very moment. Her kids walked in, and there's a baby on the ground, and another kid over there, kind of explaining to us, oh yeah, this is kind of how it is, They just kind of hang out, they go inside, outside, it's just kind of free roaming, this and that, and it felt like home to us. It felt like that's what we would do with our dogs. And so we agreed. We agreed at that moment that, yeah, this is going to work. And, we appreciate you watching our dogs. Please communicate with us and stay in touch, and we'll be in touch. And we left the house. We didn't walk around the house. She didn't show us any of the other rooms. Apparently, there was the secret room where they put the dogs in. We never went back there. The only room that we were ever in was the kitchen. And so we left, and MaLeisa was like, make sure to bring back some food. Because we don't have food for them, so go, bring some food. So my wife and I walk out the gate and get in our car. And I don't know why I did. And Sherman, one thing I'll mention before is that Parker was blind. He became blind maybe a year before that. And so that was one of our big concerns was, how is Parker going to get along? Is he going to be okay in this environment? It's a brand new environment. It's a really big property. Is he going to run into stuff? In fact, when we were sitting there in the kitchen, we heard a big bang on the side of the house, and my wife and I looked at each other and were like, oh, it's probably just Parker kind of getting used to things. And that was another big concern of ours, was that our dog was blind. Well, so we get in our car, and Sherman ran out to the gate. And the gate was closed, but Sherman ran out to the gate, and he was staring at us, and MaLeisa, I actually have the video of MaLeisa staring in the doorway, MaLeisa. And I don't know why I did this, but I took out my phone and I took a video. I'm not sure why. I kind of do that every once in a while. I'm kind of weird like that. Just kind of take my phone out at random times. But there was something in me that just said, you need to take a video of Sherman. You need to get him on video for, what ended up being the last time they ever saw him. And it's crazy because, as I was videotaping Sherman, I don't know if you've seen the tape, but he was just, I don't know, he just had this sense, this sixth sense about him, that, get me out of here. I don't want to be here, Dad. He did not want to be there. And I forgot about the video until my wife told me a couple days later, but Well, he watched us as we drove away, and we were watching him as we drove away. It was the last time we ever saw Sherman alive. My wife and I, we went and got the food, we came back, and I think we called or texted MaLeisa, and she's like, oh, just, kind of drop it off. I don't know if we talked to her or not, but we dropped the food off in front of the gate, and then we left. My son's birthday was in a few weeks, and all I wanted to do was go to Disneyland. I've been talking about it for a year. I just want to go see Mickey Mouse, I want to go see Goofy. I think it was Friday morning, we drove to California. I think that was the morning that they found our dogs. That all the dogs ended up dying was the morning that we drove by their house to California on vacation. We got there Friday night, so excited. We printed Disneyland shirts for our boys. Happy birthday, Brady. We thought we were going to have the most wonderful trip ever. Again, a growing family with children. We woke up the next morning, we went to have breakfast. First thing we were going to do was go to the beach. I was going to try to teach my boys how to boogie board, build sandcastles, do everything that families do. Right when we get out of breakfast, we're driving onto the street right in front of the Disneyland Hotel, or the strip there, or whatever. And I think we got a voicemail from Todd, Jesse. Hey Shannon, this is Jesse or Todd or whatever. I just want to let you know that your dogs got away, that your dogs ran away, that there was a digger in the group, and your dogs got out. And we're looking for them. My family's in the neighborhood, we're all looking for them. We're running around trying to find them. Please call me back or whatever, however the voicemail was. So my wife calls back, and I don't know, I think she leaves a voicemail, or maybe she got on the phone or whatever. But I got on the phone with Jesse, or Todd, and I asked him what happened. I've never talked to him before.
Mr. Gillette, it's better to address me.
I apologize.
That's all right.
I'd never talked to him before. I said, what happened? I wasn't mad, I wasn't frustrated, I wasn't angry. I said, what happened? And he said, well, there was a digger in the group, your dogs got out of the hole, they got away. And I'm thinking to myself, my dogs got away. One of them's blind. How did he get through a little hole that a dog dug under the fence? There's no way. And it's like, I go, have you found any of them? Are they okay? Like, well, we've got our children out there, and we're all over the neighborhood looking for your dogs. And I asked him, I go, well, I remember when we dropped them off, Todd, that there was a irrigation ditch in front of your property that water ran through it. Because they live in a, kind of a farm area community or whatever, big lots. And I asked him, I go, have you checked that irrigation ditch? Because Parker's blind. If he ran away, there's a good chance he could have fallen in that ditch and drowned. Like, David, I already checked it. There are no dogs in the ditch. There are no dogs in the irrigation trench. I'm like, okay, thank God. And I know Todd remembers this because I said it very clear. He may have not expected a client that just lost his dogs to act like this, but I was very calm, I was very sincere, I was very respectful. And I told Todd over the phone, I go, Todd, I'm sorry. I could only imagine what you're going through right now. I'm sorry that this happened to you. I know you were watching a lot of dogs. I could only imagine what you're going through right now, what's going through your head. Is there any way that we could help? All along, he knew that not just our dogs, but more than 20 dogs were piled up in a little shed in their backyard. As I'm speaking with him over the phone, telling him I'm sorry, I can only imagine what you're going through right now. It's not till later I found that out, and I'm thinking to myself, how could you sit on the phone with somebody? You just lost their dogs. And the person you lost their dogs is on the phone and telling you, I'm sorry. Sympathizing, empathizing with you. How could you be on the phone with them saying, oh, we're going to do everything we can to find your dogs? The whole time you know that they're piled up in a shed, that for the last week there have been dogs dying on your property and you're still accepting dogs, while dogs are dead. Family members. And so I told Todd, my mother-in-law is right up the street. I've got a bunch of friends I can get on Facebook and get them over there and help you out. What do you need? How can I help you? Oh, we got it. You don't need to worry about it. We're pretty confident we'll be able to find your dogs. So I get off the phone. The whole time I'm thinking, I'm calling my mother-in-law right now. I'm going to put a post on Facebook right now. We're going to get some people over there. We're going to find our dogs. So the first thing I did was I called Jill, my mother-in-law. Said, Jill, can you please get over there as quick as you can? Sherman and Parker ran away. We need help finding them. Yeah, not a problem. I'll get over there immediately. I get on Facebook, put something on Facebook. We need as many of our friends to get over there as possible. It's 110 degrees out. Most people don't realize that, 110 degrees. Could you imagine? Fur coats these dogs are wearing. I'm thinking we got to get over there as quick as we can. These dogs are going to die of dehydration if we don't find them. Within minutes, my mother-in-law's there, got a bunch of friends there. They're scouring the neighborhood looking for our dogs. I called 911, like, hey, have you guys seen any dogs in the Gilbert area? Around not Possum Butte, whatever the school is there off of Val Vista. No, we haven't seen anything, but we'll keep our eyes out. Okay, thank you, appreciate it. Get off the phone, and my wife and I were still kind of driving to the beach. We're a little nervous now, like, what's going on, There's something sure, Parker's blind, there's no way he can get out of a hole, like, what's going on? What, I don't get it. What's happening right now? And as we're approaching the beach, about ready to park and just celebrate my son's birthday. 4 years of life. My mother-in-law calls me. And we didn't think it was going to be that big of a deal, so my wife put it on speakerphone. My 2 boys are in the back. No, it's ingrained in my memory that this is dead. They're dead, they're all dead. All of them, they're all dead. And she's just, expressing her emotions, and my boys in the back are hearing this, and we're about to go to the beach and have a great time, and we're all confused. I go, babe, you got to get off speakerphone. So I take the phone from my wife, and I take it off speakerphone, I get out of the car, I pull out to the side, I go sit on this concrete bench, and I'm sitting there with my head down, like, Jill, slow down. What's going on? Tell me what's going on. They're dead. All the dogs are dead. They had more than what they told. There's so many dogs that they're piled up in the shed back there. Sherman and Parker were gone. And I couldn't believe what I was hearing. There's no way. How is this possible? There's only like 5 or 6 dogs on that property. How in the world could they die? And he just told me that they ran away. So wait, they ran away, but now they're dead, and there's all these dogs dead, and
my kids are in the back, and they want to go build sandcastles, and I'm just thinking to myself, what is going on? It didn't make sense to me. I couldn't register what she was saying. And finally it hit me, like, our dogs are gone. Sherman and Parker are gone. Our two sons are gone. And I didn't understand it yet, but I knew that they were not there anymore, because my mother-in-law told me. I got it, but I didn't understand. And now I'm thinking to myself, I got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old in the back seat that have their swimming suits on. They have sandcastles in the back, boogie boards, water balloons. What the hell is going on right now? The only thing I'm thinking about is, how am I going to be able to explain this to my wife, but keep it from my kids, so that we can celebrate my son's 4th birthday? Because they don't know they wouldn't understand. So I get back in the car and I couldn't help myself. I cried for minutes and minutes and minutes. We pulled into the beach parking, and my wife and I are crying. My boys are, "What's going on, Mom? What's going on, Dad? I've never seen you cry before. What's going on?" They didn't know why I was crying. They didn't get it. The only thing my wife and I could think of was, you know what, the dogs are sick. We just found out the dogs are sick, and it's really sad because, you know, they're going to need help, and they're probably going to have to go to the hospital, and the dogs are sick. And we're just trying to kind of set them up for, you know, the inevitable. And so my wife and I, for the next couple of days, my wife and I sat down together. We went to the beach. So we're not going to ruin my 4-year-old's birthday. They don't get it. We told them, hey, we're going to turn around and go home. Well, why? You're destroying my birthday. Why? I don't get it. We're going to tell them your dogs, your 2 big brothers have been killed. Any good parent would sit there and say, you know what? We've got to suck it up. My wife and I made a decision to stay. It's the worst vacation I've ever been on. It was the most challenging parenting experience that I've ever had in my life. And 2 years has gone by. Since then, nothing has come close to try and balance what was going on and what is right and what's wrong, and should we go home and should we stay? Should we ruin our kid's birthday? Like, you don't get a book on that when you become a parent. There's no publication that you read to explain what to do in that situation. So in the coming hours, we find out what's going on, and we find out the truth about we find out about what happened to our dogs. And we've got reporters calling us left and right on vacation. My wife has to take the kids on a ride so I can talk to someone. I've got to take my boys on a ride so she can talk. I mean, it was miserable. It was horrible. Come to find out, we're not the only family. We thought we were maybe one of a couple families. Maybe one other family, 2 other families. Come to find out, there's a whole courtroom full of families that this happened to. It's amazing how many people were affected by this. Well, as we start interacting with the families, we find out the stories from them that, we never saw any golden retrievers when we dropped our dogs off. What do you mean you didn't see our golden retrievers? It's a free-roaming environment. They in and out of the house, sleeping with our kids, extension of our family. You didn't see our golden retrievers when you dropped your dogs off?
No, we never saw them. Never saw them. Where the hell were they? Where were they? I don't know. To this day, I don't know. It's just lie after lie after lie after lie. It's just unbelievable. And the stories from the other families, I mean, it's just, you know, oh, Valor escaped when the media was here and the media let him out. Seriously? That's your excuse? Yeah, I never wanted to be put in this position. My wife and I and our family, we lead a pretty conservative life. I've never wanted to step foot in a courtroom. I've never wanted to be in their position. I've never wanted to be in our position. But life happens. And I've had to explain that to my children. You know what? Life happens. Dad, why are you all dressed up? I don't dress up. You can ask the family. I don't dress up. I was going to wear a polo today. My kids looked at me when I was leaving. They go, Dad, what the heck are you wearing? I usually wear flip-flops and shorts. I go, babe, buddies, I got to go to court. Like, why do you have to go to court? Well, I can't tell you why, but, you know, your mom and your grandma, we've got to take care of some stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, I've never wanted to step foot in a courtroom before. Ever. I didn't ask for this. None of us asked for this. You know, what's going to happen is my wife and I consider us to be pretty good people. You know, we don't enjoy standing up in court and talking bad about other people or accusing other people for doing things. But we've watched enough Dateline NBC and courtroom stories to know that you've got to be held accountable for your actions. You know, I'm sure MaLeisa and Todd, you know, in their circle of friends, they're good people. But there are a lot of good people out there that commit crimes. There are a lot of people out there that serve the community and are foster parents and you know, are friends with, are involved in their church and all this different, there are a lot of decent people out there that commit crimes, that murder and steal and rob banks and launder money and deal drugs and are responsible for the deaths of animals, and they're held accountable for their actions. You know, I learned that they're going to come up and they're going to have their witness, you know, their character witnesses come up and all that. That's great. You know, that's great. Tell them how great they are. That's great. That's fine. That doesn't change what happened to us. That doesn't change what happened to our animals, our family members. The Hugheses were responsible for the deaths of our dogs. The actions that they took our family members. They never told us that they were leaving town. They never told us they were going to Florida for their daughter's volleyball tournament. Never. It didn't happen. We hired you to watch our family members. I hired a babysitter to come here. I wouldn't expect that babysitter to call their buddy and say, hey, I need to go to San Diego real quick. Will you come watch these kids for me? They leave. The babysitter we hired leaves, and they've got people we don't even know watching our family members. I would have never expected that from the Hughes. The people we hired left town. They up and left. Our family members in the care of people we never met. We never even heard of before. Bottom line is that they're responsible for the deaths of our dogs. Period. They lied about it. They didn't tell us the truth. They told us what we wanted to hear. 10 feet away from the kitchen that we were in the first day, they had a room that they jammed more than 20 dogs in, 28, 29 dogs in. And come to find out later that it wasn't just that time, that it was actually a consistent thing that they'd been doing for a while. They need to be held accountable for their actions. I don't wish harm on anyone. I don't enjoy this. I hate doing this. This is not fun for me. I want to be home with my boys. I want to be home with my wife, enjoying life. The bottom line, in our country, in our society, and in our court system, you've got to be held accountable for your actions. You can't just commit crimes and get away with it. In the state of Arizona, one day for one dog doesn't make sense. We have a memory for every single day over a period of 9 years with each one of our animals. So that life is worth one day, one memory. It's crazy. We're not the only family. We've got a whole courtroom of families.
Mr. Gillette, I'm sorry, I've got to ask you to finish. We're half an hour over. I've got to give staff their break.
So anyway, once again, I appreciate the court. Thank you. Thank you to the families. Our animals, our family members will never be forgotten. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gillette.
Can you park? Okay, we will stand in recess. All right.